In 2026, the world will not reward the loudest voice in the room. It will reward the calmest presence. Everywhere you look, people are speaking, reacting, explaining, defending, justifying. Words are spilling out faster than thoughts can mature. Noise has become normal. And in this constant noise, most people believe that speaking more makes them stronger, more visible, more respected. It does not. It weakens them. There is a quiet power that most people never train. The power to pause, the power to observe. The power to keep the mouth shut when the ego is desperate to speak. Silence is not the absence of confidence. Silence is confidence that does not need approval. When you speak too quickly, you reveal too much. Your fears, your insecurities, your intentions, exposed before they are refined. But when you remain silent, you stay in control. You choose when to act. You choose when to strike. You choose when your words will matter. Understand this deeply. Every word you release carries your energy. Waste it, and you feel drained. Guard it, and you become solid. Most conflicts do not begin with action. They begin with careless speech. Most regrets are not born from silence, but from words spoken without discipline. In moments of anger, excitement, or the urge to prove yourself, silence becomes your greatest weapon. It cools the fire before it consumes you. It keeps your dignity intact when others lose theirs. The disciplined person listens more than they speak, not because they have nothing to say, but because they are gathering clarity. While others rush to be heard, the disciplined mind is watching patterns, studying behavior, and understanding timing. When such a person finally speaks, people stop and listen. Why? Because silence has already built authority. In 2026, learn this skill as you would train your body or your breath. Not every thought deserves a voice. Not every opinion deserves air. Not every challenge deserves a response. When you master silence, you master silence. You master yourself. The world no longer controls you. You move through it with calm, precision, and quiet strength. Silence is often misunderstood because it looks passive on the surface, but in reality, it is one of the most active forms of strength a person can develop. Most people speak to fill space, to defend an image, or to prove relevance. This urge is not confidence, it is insecurity demanding reassurance. True strength does not rush outward, it settles inward first. When you choose silence, you are not retreating, you are standing firm within yourself. You are deciding that your inner state matters more than external validation, and that decision alone separates the disciplined from the reactive. A weak person feels pressure to respond to everything. An opinion, a provocation, a misunderstanding, all demand immediate explanation. This creates a pattern where others control your emotional rhythm. Silence breaks that pattern. It slows the moment. It creates space. In that space, clarity emerges. Strength is the ability to remain grounded while others are shaken, to remain still while others scramble for control. Silence trains this ability by removing the habit of impulsive reaction. When you speak less, people listen more. This is not accidental. Human attention follows restraint. Words that are rare carry weight. Words that are constant become noise. Silence sharpens your presence because it forces others to observe you rather than dismiss you. In silence, your posture, your breath, your gaze begin to communicate. These forms of communication are far more honest than speech because they cannot easily lie. A calm silence signals self-trust. It tells others you are not dependent on their approval or agreement. There is also a deeper internal strength developed through silence, emotional regulation. Many people believe strength is the ability to overpower others, but real strength is the ability to govern yourself. Silence gives emotions time to pass without becoming actions. Anger rises, but silence prevents damage. Excitement surges, but silence prevents overcommitment. Fear appears, but silence prevents self-betrayal. Over time, this practice builds an unshakable core. You stop being controlled by momentary feelings and start acting from intention. Silence also protects you. When you reveal less, you give others less to use against you. Words can be twisted, repeated, misunderstood, or weaponized. Silence leaves nothing exposed. It keeps your plans intact and your inner world private. This is not secrecy driven by fear, but privacy driven by wisdom. You do not owe everyone access to your thoughts. Strength knows when to withhold and when to release. In challenging environments, silence becomes dominance without aggression. While others compete to be seen and heard, the silent individual stands apart. They are not pulled into unnecessary conflict. They do not waste energy on arguments that lead nowhere. Their calm unsettles those who rely on chaos. Their restraint creates authority because it shows mastery over impulse. This kind of strength cannot be faked. It is built slowly through repeated discipline. Silence also sharpens perception. When you stop talking, you start noticing. Tone changes. Body language reveals intent. Patterns become visible. People often reveal more about themselves when you give them space to speak. By staying silent, you gain information. By gaining information, you gain advantage. Strength is not only force, it is understanding. Silence is the doorway to that understanding. Most importantly, silence strengthens your relationship with yourself. It removes the need to perform. It allows you to hear your own thoughts without distortion. In that quiet, values become clear. Decisions become clean. You act less from habit and more from principle. Over time, you no longer fear silence because you no longer fear being alone with yourself, and that inner steadiness becomes visible in the way you move, the way you move, the way you choose your words only when they are necessary and true. Every word you speak carries a cost, whether you are aware of it or not. Words are not neutral sounds. They are expressions of attention, emotion, and intention. When you speak, you release a portion of your inner energy into the world. If this energy is scattered carelessly, you feel drained, unfocused, and mentally weak. If it is conserved and released with precision, it becomes power. Most people talk constantly and then wonder why they feel exhausted, misunderstood, or overlooked. They have spent their energy without discipline. Unnecessary speech leaks force. Complaining, over-explaining, gossiping, and arguing all consume far more energy than people realize. Each sentence pulls you outward, away from stillness and clarity. When you conserve words, that energy turns inward and strengthens you. Your thoughts become sharper, your emotions stabilize, your presence becomes heavier. This is why calm individuals often feel powerful without doing anything dramatic. They are not wasting their internal resources through endless speech. Speaking less also protects mental focus. The mind cannot be sharp when it is constantly verbalizing every thought. Silence allows thoughts to mature before they are expressed. Instead of reacting instantly, you give yourself time to refine what truly matters. This refinement saves energy because you are no longer correcting yourself, defending poorly chosen words, or regretting impulsive statements. One deliberate sentence costs less energy than 10 careless ones. Energy conserved through silence becomes available for action. People who talk too much often act too little. They release the tension that should have fueled movement. Speaking about plans gives a false sense of progress, while silence preserves hunger. When you keep your goals quiet, they grow stronger inside you. The energy remains stored, waiting for execution rather than applause. This is why disciplined individuals often move silently and produce results without announcement. There is also a social dimension to energy conservation. When you speak excessively, you hand control of the interaction to others. You react to their words, their emotions, their pace. Silence reclaims that control. You set the tempo. You decide when the exchange advances. This preserves emotional energy because you are no longer pulled into other people's urgency. Calm. Silence slows the environment around you, allowing you to remain centered while others reveal themselves. Words spoken in emotion are especially costly. Anger, fear, and excitement amplify energy loss. Silence during these states acts like a container. It holds the energy until it stabilizes. Once stable, that energy can be redirected into clear action or precise speech. This practice transforms raw emotion into controlled force. Over time, you stop feeling drained by situations that once overwhelmed you because you are no longer leaking energy through uncontrolled expression. Silence also deepens your presence. When energy is not spent outward, it accumulates inward. People can feel this accumulation even if they cannot explain it. A person who speaks less but listens fully radiates intensity. Their words land heavier because they carry stored force. This is not mystical, it is psychological. Scarcity increases value. When your words are scarce, they carry weight. Conserving verbal energy also strengthens discipline. It teaches you that not every thought deserves expression. This creates a filter between impulse and action. That filter is the foundation of self-mastery. Each time you choose silence over unnecessary speech, you reinforce control over yourself. This control spills into other areas of life, work, relationships, and personal growth. In a world addicted to noise, conserving words becomes a competitive advantage. Others exhaust themselves trying to be seen while you remain composed. Your energy stays intact, your focus stays sharp, your actions become decisive. You no longer feel the need to fill silence because you understand that silence is not emptiness but stored power waiting for the right moment to be released with precision and purpose. The need to explain yourself is one of the most expensive habits you can carry because it quietly drains authority while pretending to protect it. Most explanations are not given to clarify truth, but to defend identity. When people feel misunderstood, challenged, or questioned, they rush to explain, hoping to regain control. But the more you explain, the more you place yourself beneath the judgment of others. You signal that their approval is required for your actions to be valid, and this signal weakens your position. Unnecessary explanation creates a loop of dependence. One explanation invites another question, which demands another clarification, which then invites doubt. Soon, you are trapped justifying choices that were never meant to be debated. Strong individuals do not live in constant defense of their decisions. They act, observe the results, and adjust silently. They understand that outcomes speak more clearly than explanations ever could. Every explanation also reveals more than intended. In trying to clarify one point, people often expose motivations, fears, or uncertainties that others can sense and exploit. Words meant to protect you can become tools against you. Silence, on the other hand, reveals nothing. It keeps your inner reasoning private and your strategic thinking intact. This is not avoidance, it is containment. Over-explaining also weakens communication. When you add too many words, your message loses sharpness. What could have been understood in one sentence becomes diluted across many. The listener becomes confused, bored, or suspicious. Clear authority speaks simply or not at all. Tone, hesitation, repetition, and emotional shifts all carry meaning. These details are missed by those who are preparing their next statement instead of paying attention. The disciplined listener notices patterns. Over time, these patterns reveal priorities, weaknesses, and intentions. Acting with this knowledge gives you leverage without force. Listening also protects you from unnecessary conflict. Many arguments escalate because people respond to words rather than intent. When you listen deeply, you understand what is actually being communicated beneath the surface words. This allows you to respond with precision or remain silent when a response would add nothing. Restraint in speech, guided by listening, prevents energy loss and preserves dignity. In leadership and influence, listening builds authority more effectively than constant instruction. People feel seen when they are heard, and this creates trust. Trust creates openness. Openness creates influence. When others believe you understand them, they are more willing to follow, cooperate, or reveal their concerns. This influence does not come from force, but from presence. It is quiet, stable, and long-lasting. Listening also disciplines the ego. The desire to speak often comes from the need to assert importance. By choosing to listen, you weaken that impulse. You remind yourself that understanding is more valuable than being right. This internal shift strengthens self-control and emotional maturity. Over time, your reactions become measured rather than impulsive. Silence paired with listening sharpens your timing. You learn when to speak and when to remain still. Words delivered at the right moment carry more impact than words delivered constantly. When you finally speak, it is not to compete but to conclude, not to dominate but to direct. People listen because your voice emerges from understanding, not noise. There is also a psychological effect on others' state on others. Being fully listened to lowers defenses. People relax, they feel safe. In that safety, they reveal more than they planned. This is not manipulation, it is natural human response. The listener becomes the center of gravity in the interaction, holding space without demanding attention. True listening requires discipline because it demands patience and presence. It requires resisting the urge to interrupt, correct, or impress. But this discipline builds a form of dominance that is calm and undeniable. You are no longer reacting to the world, you are observing it. And from that observation comes clarity, control, and quiet authority that does not need to announce itself to be felt. Emotional discipline begins where impulsive expression ends. Most people believe they are strong because they express what they feel immediately. But this is not strength. It is release without control. Real discipline is the ability to feel fully without being ruled by those feelings. Silence plays a critical role in this process because it creates a pause between emotion and action. In that pause, choice is born. Without silence, emotion drives behavior, and behavior shapes consequences that often bring regret. When emotions rise, the body reacts first. The heart rate changes, the breath shortens, and the mind searches for words to discharge tension. Speaking in these moments feels relieving, but it is also destructive. Words spoken under emotional pressure rarely reflect truth. They reflect state, Silence prevents temporary emotions from becoming permanent damage. It allows the nervous system to settle before decisions are made. Restraint in speech trains emotional endurance. Instead of escaping discomfort through expression, you remain present with it. This presence builds tolerance. Over time, situations that once triggered immediate reactions lose their grip on you. You are no longer pulled outward by every emotional wave. This is not suppression, it is mastery. Suppression denies emotion, while discipline observes it without surrendering control. Silence also clarifies what an emotion is actually pointing to. Anger may be masking fear. Excitement may be hiding insecurity. When you speak too quickly, you label the emotion and act on the surface feeling. When you remain silent, you allow deeper understanding to emerge. This understanding leads to more accurate responses. responses that align with long-term values rather than short-term relief. Emotional discipline through restraint also protects relationships. Many conflicts are not caused by intention but by timing. The right words spoken at the wrong moment can cause harm. Silence gives time for perspective. It allows you to choose words that heal rather than wound. Over time, people learn that your responses are measured, not explosive. This builds trust and respect because consistency feels safe. There is also strength in not reacting to provocation. Some individuals test boundaries by attempting to trigger emotional responses. When you remain silent, their tactic fails. The absence of reaction removes their leverage. This shifts power immediately. You are no longer participating in their emotional game. Your calm becomes a mirror that exposes their instability without confrontation. Practicing silence during emotional intensity strengthens self-respect. Each time you resist the urge to speak impulsively, you reinforce the belief that you are capable of self-governance. This belief shapes identity. You begin to see yourself as someone who acts with intention, not impulse. Identity shapes behavior, and behavior shapes destiny. Emotional restraint also preserves energy. Emotional reactions are exhausting. They create mental loops, replayed conversations, and lingering tension. Silence short-circuits this cycle. By not feeding the emotion with words, you allow it to pass more quickly. What remains is clarity. What remains is clarity. From clarity, effective action becomes possible. Over time, emotional discipline changes your presence. You move slower, you respond later, you speak less, but with greater precision. People sense that you are not easily shaken. This steadiness becomes influence. Others begin to regulate themselves around you because your calm sets the tone. You become an anchor in unstable environments, not by force, but by composure. The ultimate benefit of restraint is freedom. When emotions no longer control your mouth, they no longer control your life. You are free to choose your responses, your direction, and your standards. Silence becomes not a restriction, but a tool for self-command, allowing emotions to inform you without ever ruling you. There's a unique strength in being unreadable, because clarity given too freely invites interference. Most people reveal their inner state through constant expression. Their faces, words, and reactions broadcast exactly where they stand. This makes them predictable, and predictability makes them vulnerable. When others can easily read you, they can influence you, pressure you, or manipulate your emotional responses. Unreadability removes this access point and restores control to the individual. Being unreadable does not mean being deceptive. It means being contained. Your emotions still exist. Your thoughts still move, but they are not displayed on demand. This containment creates psychological distance. Others are unsure how their words land, unsure whether their tactics work, unsure where your limits are. This uncertainty shifts power. People behave more cautiously around those they cannot easily assess. Silence plays a central role in unreadability. When you reduce unnecessary speech, you reduce information leakage. Reactions are data. Explanations are data. Emotional outbursts are data. Each one tells others how to reach you. By staying quiet, you keep that map hidden. You are no longer advertising your triggers or your desires. Unreadability also strengthens inner stability. When you stop performing your emotions outwardly, you stop rehearsing them internally. The emotion arises, is observed, and then fades without becoming a narrative. This prevents over-identification with temporary states. You are no longer angry, excited, or afraid in identity. You are simply aware that anger, excitement, or fear is present. This awareness without expression builds composure. In social and professional environments, Unreadability commands respect. People trust those who appear steady. They feel unsettled by those who shift constantly. When your responses are minimal and measured, others learn that your reactions are not automatic. This discourages games, tests, and manipulation. Your presence sets a boundary without words. Unreadability also protects your intentions. Goals spoken too early attract opinions, doubts, and distractions. Silence keeps your direction clean. You move without interference. When results appear, they speak without explanation. This preserves momentum and prevents the energy drain that comes from defending unfinished ideas. There is also a psychological benefit in not revealing everything you feel. Expression often reinforces emotion. When you express anger, it grows. When you express fear, it deepens. When you express excitement prematurely, it dissolves. By remaining unreadable, you prevent emotions from amplifying themselves through expression. This creates emotional efficiency. Feelings pass without leaving residue. Unreadability forces others to engage with substance rather than reaction. When they cannot read your approval or disapproval, they must rely on their own judgment. This shifts responsibility back to them. You are no longer an emotional reference point for the room. You become independent of the emotional climate around you. Developing unreadability requires discipline because it resists instinct. The instinct is to show, to react, to confirm. Silence interrupts that instinct. Over time, this practice rewires response patterns. You become slower to react, quicker to observe. This does not make you cold. It makes you precise. The power of being unreadable is not in mystery for its own sake, but in autonomy. You are not shaped by how others perceive you in the moment. You act from alignment rather than reaction. This autonomy creates a calm authority that cannot be challenged easily because it does not seek to prove itself. Others sense that you are operating from a deeper center, one that does not depend on being understood immediately, and this quiet independence becomes a form of strength that speaks louder than expression ever could. Chaos is not defined by noise alone, but by speed, unpredictability, and emotional instability. In such environments, most people feel compelled to react quickly, believing that fast responses equal control. In reality, speed without clarity deepens disorder. Silence becomes the anchor in these moments because it slows perception and stabilizes the inner state. When everything around you is rushing, the ability to remain still becomes a form of mastery. Silence in chaos is not withdrawal. It is deliberate non-reaction. While others are pulled into urgency, the silent individual observes patterns forming beneath the surface. Chaos always follows structure, even if it appears random. But structure can only be seen by those who are not emotionally entangled. Silence creates the distance required to see clearly. It prevents you from being swept into confusion that does not serve you. When chaos rises, emotions rise with it. Fear spreads quickly. Anger escalates. Excitement clouds judgment. Speaking in these moments often amplifies instability. Words bounce, collide, and mutate. Silence absorbs instead of reflects. It acts as a buffer between external disorder and internal balance. This buffering protects decision-making. Instead of reacting to the loudest signal, you respond to the most meaningful one. There is a psychological shift that occurs when you remain silent during chaos. Others begin to look to you, not because you are loud, but because you are steady. Stability attracts attention naturally. People sense when someone is not panicking. This presence alone can calm a room. Without instructions or commands, your composure becomes a reference point. This is leadership without force. Silence also preserves strategic timing. In chaos, information is incomplete and constantly changing. Acting too soon locks you into mistakes. Silence buys time. Buys time. Silence buys time. Time allows more data to surface. Patterns repeat. Motives reveal themselves. What initially seemed urgent often loses importance when viewed from stillness. By waiting, you avoid committing to paths shaped by temporary pressure. Self-mastery is tested most in disorder. Or anyone can remain calm when conditions are favorable. Few can do so when uncertainty dominates. Silence strengthens this capacity by training restraint. Each time you resist reacting, you reinforce inner authority. You remind yourself that you are not required to participate in every disturbance. This internal boundary keeps your identity intact when external structures shake. Chaos often provokes explanation and justification. People speak rapidly to assert relevance, to avoid being overlooked, or to regain control. Silence refuses this compulsion. It signals self-containment. Self-containment. You do not chase relevance, you allow it to come to you. This shifts power away from the environment and back to the self. Remaining silent also protects energy during disorder. Chaos drains those who engage with it emotionally. Arguments, speculation, and panic consume mental resources. Silence conserves them. Conserved energy becomes clarity. Clarity becomes precision. Precision allows decisive action when the moment truly arrives. There is also an ethical aspect to silence in chaos. When emotions dominate, harm is often caused unintentionally. Words spoken in instability linger long after the moment passes. Silence prevents unnecessary damage. It allows actions to be guided by principle rather than impulse. This integrity strengthens long-term outcomes even if it appears passive in the short term. Mastering silence in chaos does not mean permanent stillness. It means waiting until movement aligns with understanding. When you finally act, your action is clean, purposeful, and effective. It cuts through disorder rather than adding to it. Others may not notice your silence immediately, but they will notice the impact of your timing. Over time, this practice transforms your relationship with uncertainty. Chaos no longer feels threatening. It becomes a condition to navigate rather than a force to fight. Silence becomes your grounding point, allowing you to move through instability with composure, awareness, and control, while others exhaust themselves, reacting to waves. You have already learned to stand above speaking only when words carry weight is the final refinement of silence. Because it transforms speech from habit into action. Most people speak to relieve tension, to fill space, or to feel included. Their words evaporate the moment they are spoken. Weighted words are different. They land, they linger, they alter direction. This kind of speech is rare because it requires restraint, awareness, and responsibility. When you speak only with intention, you accept that words are commitments, not decorations. Weight in speech comes from alignment. When your words match your actions, your tone, and your values, they gain gravity. People sense when someone speaks from inner clarity rather than emotional impulse. This clarity cannot be rushed. It is forged in silence where thoughts are tested internally before being released. Silence becomes the filter that removes excess, leaving only what is essential. What passes through this filter carries force. Speaking less trains discernment. You begin to ask yourself whether a statement improves the situation or merely expresses a feeling. This question alone eliminates most unnecessary speech. Over time, you stop reacting verbally to every stimulus. You wait. You observe. When you finally speak, it is because something truly needs to be said. This discipline turns speech into a tool rather than a reflex. Weighted words also reshape how others listen. When people notice that you do not speak casually, they pay attention when you do. For you, your voice becomes a signal, not background noise. This is not about intimidation or mystery, but about consistency. You have taught the environment that your words are considered, not careless. As a result, conversations change, interruptions decrease, resistance softens, attention sharpens. There is accountability in meaningful speech. When words are chosen carefully, you stand behind them fully. You are not explaining them away later. You are not backtracking. This builds credibility. People trust those who do not scatter promises, opinions, or judgments. Trust is not built through volume, but through reliability. Reliability is born when speech is rare and accurate. Speaking only when words carry weight also reduces internal conflict. Regret often comes from saying too much too soon or too emotionally. When speech is restrained, regret fades. You no longer replay conversations wishing you had stayed silent. Your inner world becomes quieter because it is no longer cleaning up verbal messes. This mental quiet strengthens confidence and presence. There is also humility in this practice. You accept that not every moment needs your input. Not every discussion needs your opinion. This humility is not self-erasure, it is self-respect. You value your voice enough not to waste it. You recognize that silence can sometimes communicate more than explanation ever could. Weighted speech influences timing. The right words at the wrong time lose power. Silence allows timing to mature. It allows situations to reveal their true nature. When the moment aligns, even a few words can redirect an entire dynamic. This precision is only possible when speech is not driven by impatience. In leadership, meaningful speech sets direction without force. Clear, minimal words create structure. People understand what matters because it is not buried under excess. Instructions become simpler. Expectations become clearer. This clarity reduces confusion and resistance. People follow not because they are overwhelmed, but because they understand. On a personal level, this discipline reshapes identity. You begin to see yourself as someone whose words matter. This self-image reinforces restraint naturally. You no longer feel the urge to speak, to prove existence. Your presence alone becomes enough. When words emerge, they emerge from fullness, not lack. Ultimately, speaking only when words carry weight is an expression of respect for yourself, for others, and for reality. It acknowledges that words shape outcomes, relationships, and direction. By choosing silence most of the time, you preserve the power of speech for moments that truly matter. Moments where a single sentence, spoken calmly and deliberately, can change the course of a conversation, a decision, or a life.